Hi, I'm Walt Wager, and today we're going to be talking about making a simple little box. And then what this will demonstrate, the skills this will demonstrate, are end grain turning. We're going to be drilling into end grain, and measuring and parting off a little box. We could use a scroll chuck. We're going to start with a faceplate, and I'll show you how to attach the block to the faceplate. I'm starting with a block of wood that's 3 inches by 3 inches by 5 inches long. The grain is running parallel to the lathe bed like this. So we'll be doing some spindle turning on the side grain, and then we'll be doing some end grain. First I'm going to mark the centers of this piece of wood. Okay, I'm going to start by setting the spur drive in the piece of wood, and I have a dead blow hammer. Get my light out of the way here. I'm going to start turning this piece between centers to be sure that the end is flat, so that when I put it on the faceplate, it sits nice and square. So I'm going to set my tool rest at about center. Make sure that the block is secure in the lathe. Spin it so that I'm sure that it clears the tool rest. I'm going to check my speed, turn it down, and then turn it up to where I need it to be. And I'll start roughing this at about 1,000 RPM. Bring down my face mask. I'm going to use the anchor bevel cut method for roughing this. That is, I'm going to anchor the tool on the tool rest, let the bevel ride on the wood, then bring back and get my cut. Turn it off, move the tool rest. Move this out a bit. I don't have to make this all perfectly round right now because I'm going to put the faceplate on here, but I do have to make this edge here flat or slightly concave, and I'm going to use a parting tool to do that. So I'm going to come in, parting tool, I can see that it's slightly concave, and that's fine. Let me review for you what we just did. We had the blank between centers. We turned it to make sure that it cleared the tool rest. We put the tool on the tool rest, and that's the anchor part of anchor bevel cut, ABC. Anchor, bevel. We put the bevel on the wood where it's not cutting, but it's hitting the wood, and then we raise the handle till it starts cutting. That's anchor, bevel, cut. And I'm using the spindle roughing gouge. The spindle roughing gouge is used only on side grain, never on end grain when you're cutting. All right, now we're going to go over and put the faceplate on the block of wood. Now, most likely you got a faceplate with your lathe, so you should all have one of these. And I squared that end off on the piece. Actually, it's slightly concave, and I'm going to center it just by looking down the center and using the edges of the piece that I just rounded off. And in order to screw this in, I'm going to have to drill some pilot holes for my screws. So the drill bit is going to be about the same size as the shank on the screw, slightly smaller. and that will allow me to get it in there easily yet have good holding power. So I'm going to take my drill. I'm going to drill one hole. And I'm going to set that screw. You can use wood screws or pan head metal screws, but don't use sheetrock screws because they're brittle and they'll break. If I didn't have an impact driver to put the screws in, I could use a regular screwdriver. It just takes longer. All right. That wood is nice and tight on the faceplate. I can knock out the center. And snug up that faceplate. Now, I know that that's not going to be perfectly centered as it was between centers, so I'm going to rough it out and make it round. Using the spindle roughing gouge, anchor, bevel cut method. I can tell it's round by resting the tool on top. If I hear it bouncing, it's not round. I'm going to come in at a 45-degree angle with the roughing gouge. Using the bevel on the wood, putting the bevel on the wood, and just taking a very light cut. Now it's round. The wood I'm using today is white ash, and it's nice and dry. It's kiln-dried wood. If you're going to make a box, and if you use green wood, you're going to find that it warps and the top doesn't fit. So if you use nice dry wood, everything will fit and it will work real well. Now I'm going to square off this side. We squared off this side to put it on the faceplate. We're going to use the parting tool again. The parting tool that I'm using is an 1/8 inch parting tool. It has a just a V cut on it. It cuts on this side. And generally if you push it straight in and then tip it and cut it on the bevel, you'll get a nice flame cut. So I'm going to mark out the dimensions on my box. The whole box is going to be 3 inches deep, and I'm going to have 3/4 of an inch for the top with a 1-inch tenon. So I'll mark those out there, and I have to leave space for parting it off. 1/8 of an inch. So I'll draw those lines for the top, for the tenon, space to part it off, and the bottom of the box. what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut the tenon where the top is going to go into the bottom of the box. I'm going to cut that in about 1/4 of an inch. So this cut is making the tenon that will fit down in the center of the box. And I want to make it so that the thickness of the top that I see here is going to be the inside dimension of the box and determines the wall thickness of the box. So I just want to get that nice and square before I part it off. Okay, the next step is to round off the top a little bit. You can make any designs you want on the top at this point. Of course, it's attached to a faceplate, so we don't need the tailstock right now, although it's always a good idea when you're turning to keep the tailstock up for safety. That way you know nothing's going to come off. But I'm going to use the spindle gouge with the ABC approach, and with the spindle gouge I want the bevel of the gouge to be pointing in the direction I want to go in the wood. So I'm going to lay that bevel right on the wood, and then pick up the hand, pick up my cut, and come on there like that. Am I getting in the way of the cut? Probably, yeah. Okay. Turn the lathe off when you move the tool rest. Lay the bevel on the wood and come right across and take out that nib. If it's still there, I can take another cut, lay the bevel on the wood, pick up my cut. I'm going to be putting my dust mask on. It's always good to protect your lungs. You only get one pair. And I'm going to start with 150 grit. I'm going to turn my speed down on the lathe and stand on that end grain. Move the sandpaper around, get a fresh spot. And we'll sand the body of the box while we're at it. So that was 150 grit. I'll move to 220 grit. .320 grit. And 400 grit. That looks pretty good. If you want to do any decoration on the top, this is the time to do it. So if I were going to put a few little lines in there with a parting tool or something like that, I would want to do that right now. I think to keep things simple, we'll just leave it like it is. So we can finish on now. What the finish that I've chosen for this project is a friction finish, which is a combination of shellac and wax, also sometimes called a French polish. And I'll put some on the paper towel and rub it in. Now you can finish a piece at any time. You can finish it off the lathe later. You don't have to finish it on the lathe. This is just a piece for convenience. Since we have it right here, it's all sanded. And I can turn the lathe on and turn the speed up. Polish that right off. It's pretty good. Fine. All right, I'm going to part off the top now, and I'll use the parting tool. I'm going to go straight in, but I'm going to be just a hair, maybe a 32nd of an inch above the lower lip here, so I leave a little ridge. The bottom of the top is going to be a little bit rough. We'll finish it off later in a later step. But for now, the top is finished. Now the problem is we have to hollow the box so that we have a box. And we're working an end grain, and we're going directly into the fibers on that piece of wood, which is difficult to do because if you cut directly into the fibers, they want to grab and tear. So the first thing we're going to do is put a tiny dimple in there using the spindle gouge, and I'm just moving it in and putting a little dimple in there for a drill bit. We're going to drill a hole down that will go down to as deep as our box is going to be, and then we're going to hollow the box out to the edge of this ridge that for our tenon. We sanded off the little mark we had there for the bottom before, but I'm going to put a little mark on there. And then leave my drill bit so that I'm at least 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. Put a piece of tape on there so I know my depth. A hole straight in with my power drill. Down to the depth of the box. And now I can start hollowing. There are many different ways to hollow a piece like this. I'm going to start with the spindle gouge, it's 3/8 inch spindle gouge. I'm going to put the spindle gouge around, so I'm cutting about center with the flute at about 11 o'clock. And I'm going to put it in the hole and come out to the... I'm going to leave that little ridge there because that tells me that the top won't quite fit in there yet, but just about. And I can always make it bigger, but I can't make it smaller. I should say I can always remove wood, but I can't add it later. Now this is a pull cut. I'm not riding any bevel. I'm just cutting the wood with that corner of the tip. Okay, as the box gets deeper, I want to move the tool rest, so I'm supporting the tool as best as possible. I'll turn it off and check to see where I am. I'm very close to the bottom of the box. I've got about 1/4 of an inch to go. And you notice the vibration that I'm getting off of the tool because I'm cutting on end grain deeper into that box. Okay, I'm at the bottom, and I'm just going to take light cuts now and clean up the sides. That's pretty good. And if you have a scraper, take a little round scraper and clean up the bottom. I want to be cutting at center with the handle up, a little downhill on the cutting edge. I'm going to turn the lathe off and check it out. And the diameter is almost to where it needs to be. So now I'm going to cut straight in on that edge that I saved. And the tool I'm going to use for that is the Badan. You could use a square scraper or a Badan or even the parting tool to some degree to come straight in and make the spot where the top is going to sit. Fits in there quite snugly right now, but don't worry, it doesn't take much to make it loose. So I'm going to continue that cut right down to the bottom. Turn it off and check it out. When I was making the cuts to hollow the box, you notice I went from the hole that I had drilled in the center to the outside. That way I'm shearing across the grain rather than coming directly into the grain from the outside. If I came in like this, I would reach a point where it would be very difficult to continue that cut. So since I have the hole and I can shear the grain from the side, it makes it much easier to hollow the box. When I was hollowing the box, we were probably going about 1,000 RPM. I'm going to slow it down now to sand it, and I'm going to start with 150 sandpaper, and I'm using a stick with a slot in it, and I can put my sandpaper in and put it in the box without sticking my hands in there. I'm going to go through the same routine I did on the outside. I'm going to do 150, 220, 320, and 400. And I'm sanding probably about 300 to 400 RPM. Now remember, we had a tight fit up here on the lip, but after I get done sanding it, it's not going to be so tight. .320. And 400. Just right. Alright, so we have to part the box off and finish the bottom and the top. But I'll speed it up a little bit. Flat friction polish. Alright, so now we have to part the box off from the faceplate. We have to know how deep it is, and so I know that the bottom of the box, the inside, is right there. I'm going to leave a 1/4 of an inch for the bottom, so I'll mark that. And I'm going to part it off. It's important to have sharp tools, and even parting tool, it's important that that tool be sharp in order to make a clean cut. So right now, since we've been using it before, I'm going to go over to the grinder and sharpen it. We're not going to show that on the video, but I'll be right back. To get the best cut, I'm going to come straight, then we're going to raise the tool up and put the bevel on the wood. I'm going to undercut this a little bit. I'm going to take a little extra off the waist side. Cut the bottom off of the box. That's a pretty nice clean cut. I'm going to finish the bottom of the box with making a jam chuck on here. And a jam chuck is simply something like the top that this fits onto that will allow me to cut on the bottom of the box. I'll take the spindle gouge and square this all off with the bevel pointing in the direction I want it to go. I'm going to speed up a little bit here. I'm going to measure the inside of the box using a vernier caliper. This is one of the first accessories you should think about when you get a lathe. You're going to make boxes anyhow.
And I'm just going to look on here and see even sides. That's about 3/8 of an inch in, 3/16 of an inch in. I'm going to make that cut using a parting tool. Check it. There, it's really nice and true. And if I want it to be more secure, I can put some tape around that. Tape around it. It'll stay on there. Right? You got it going? Is it going? So the final step in finishing off the bottom is to take the spindle gouge, and it's on the jam chuck, and I'm going to take a very light cut. Bevel on the wood, cut my cut, a little high. Bevel on the wood, pick up the handle, cut my cut. Bevel on the wood, pick up the handle, cut my cut. And one more time for good luck. Bevel on the wood, pick up the handle. I'm going to chamfer the edge, the corner. Sand the bottom. Sand the bottom with 150, 220, 320, and 400. Now remember the top that we hadn't done anything with the top. We have to do something similar to what we just did with the bottom.
Okay. To finish the top, what we're going to do is make a little area that this can sit into on the waist block. Bring up the tailstock, and we'll finish this area right in here. So first thing I'm going to do is take this little tenon off of here and make a little concave cut in the waist block.
Use my trusty spindle gouge. Anchor, bevel, cut again. Anchor, bevel, cut. And just stick that right there in the middle. Take the spindle gouge, anchor, bevel, cut. Slow it down. 150, 220, 220, 400. And put a little finish on that. Here we have a simple little box.